Sup guys, Jordan here. You're going to love this interview. We're joined by Scott Caputo, who's a member of the Academy, owns Adamant Agency, and he actually has a history in data science. Okay, he studied it at university, started his agency whilst he was still in university. And in this video, he reveals how he applies his knowledge of data to both scaling his e-commerce agency and delivering exceptional results to his clients. Let's get into it.
At what point per month at the moment, roughly?
I'm at like 10 to 20K bouncing around because some of it's performance based. And hopefully by the end of the year, we'll be past 20K, it looks like, but we'll see.
At what point is enough for Scott?
Right. I don't know. I feel like I've always been like a push it to its limits a little bit. I actually worked a part-time job and did my master's and did the agency for a brief time because I knew like this was something I wanted.
What's up guys, Jordan here. Today we're joined by Scott, member of the Affluent Academy, owns Adamant Media, actually a data scientist, gone agent turned agency owner, which is interesting. Can't wait to unravel that today. Started his agency whilst he was in university. First of all, Scott, thank you for being here today, man. I'm looking forward to having this chat. I always like to give people a bit of a backstory. And so can you bring everyone up to speed as to what brought you to actually launching an agency in the first place, having been at university studying data science? It's an interesting story, I'm sure.
Yeah. So first, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. But getting into it, I guess I'll just sort of take a step back and give some context on how I even got here. So I actually come, super from the analytical STEM side. So even before that, I had done some work and some projects in like software engineering and machine learning and my undergrad STEM as well. And then as I was going into my master's, I had been really exploring a lot of web development and a lot of like tech ideas. And I was actually trying to pursue my own startup. Like I had always had entrepreneurial endeavors in mind. And when I was getting accepted into some of the little programs where you take your kind of business to market and things like that, one of the biggest things before getting funding is, go like validify your idea and see if anyone cares. And I had absolutely no idea what went into marketing. And it was completely foreign to me. Like I had just been building out ideas. So going into my master's, I actually started exploring what digital marketing meant and how I could start leveraging that for my own ideas. That's actually when I came across your YouTube channel where you gave me like a ton of context on how to actually start running ads and what it meant to start building a business and how to actually deliver that idea to the world. And it was at that point that I started actually just doing like small drop shipping projects. I was taking my own creatives, running my own ads, doing everything and seeing enough success where I wasn't just like losing money or dumping money into things. And this was like right into pre-iOS 14 and everything. So all was well. And as I started getting some success, I saw a lot of people in groups and everything. And I realized that this might be something that I could do for other people. And so it kind of quickly stumbled into an agency where I was able to start building an awesome team of people even more talented than I was. And we started helping some e-commerce clients and things like that. And that's kind of how I got here. Yeah.
Love that, man. That's awesome. It's interesting that you started a few kind of drop shipping stores beforehand. I think a lot of people try and do that, but don't actually do it very well. 99% of people just get a couple of products from Alibaba, chuck them on a really mediocre website and hope for the best. What would you say are some of the things that you learned from actually running a drop shipping store yourself that you carried across into your agency?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of big ones. I always say like there's kind of like three pillars that I like to focus on the agency just because of what I've experienced. One of them is definitely data. And I came into that without a doubt because of my background in data science, where like as soon as I started seeing the analytics side, I couldn't help but read like what was I optimizing? How could I get more data? Things like that. And so that's always been a really big role where like as soon as I started things, I was trying to track them as effectively as I could so I could optimize and not just, waste dollars. I think the second one was being that I was making my own creatives from the beginning. Like I got a really like good appreciation for how valuable the content that I'm putting in the creatives were. So that's something that early on in my agency, we really started expanding into content for our clients as well, because we realized how important it was to have things like UGC and things that are actually going to like organically engage people watching it. So I think that was a big success helper for like the drop shipping ones as well, because we just did UGC style like from the get-go. Like we didn't have any other creatives except for like the bad ones we took in my bedroom with my brother, like when we were making the store, and that was about it. And then the last one was just kind of paid advertising, where I would just say putting the content in front of the right people, because we would try and blast out like 30 organic posts a month and then try and get good content and run the ads correctly. And that was pretty much it.
Love it. And so coming from your background, Were you involved in sales beforehand, or was this your kind of first time jumping? Because normally you find that like super analytical people and super academic people aren't usually the first to jump into a sales-based environment, right? Typically speaking.
Yeah.
So how was that process for you?
That part, I hated. That was my least favorite part, without a doubt, is the fact that I had to hop on calls all the time and convince people to use my services before I could do it. Like, I had all the value. And I mean, that was one of the things that truly drove me to the value of your class, is like, you do such a good job at teaching how to, one, get people on meetings with you, but then two, like, what to say. Because like I said, I mean, you can imagine from going from like data programming, coding, and running ads, like that was the last thing I wanted to do, was get on sales calls and convince people and be salesy. So that was definitely one of my biggest learning curves. And it's still something that I'm constantly improving on. Like, that's easily one of my weakest points. Like, once I get them, I love going through and getting them results. But yeah, the sales part was definitely a tough obstacle for me.
No, I can resonate with that. My dad is a software engineer. He pretty much understands every single computer language there is. Had a computer when they first came out.
Yeah.
He works for the Ministry of Defense and programs like anti-air, like homing missiles, like the crazy
Man.
shit, right? But I could never imagine him in a sales meeting. Like he wouldn't have a clue what to do. Like so I can completely understand that. So what was your process on getting clients initially? Like, did you go down the kind of cold calling route, or did you focus on emails and DMs? Like, what was the system you went for?
Yeah, not surprisingly, I tried to stay with like as little human interaction beginning. So I really was anti cold calls and everything. I started with like personalized emails. I did some Instagram DMs, and then I would try and either just get them straight to book a call by going to like a landing page, because I had already developed a little website myself, or I would do like personalized looms and try and offer value just to show them, because I could always sell like auditing the account for free just to kind of get them involved with me. And I knew what I was looking at on the ad side. So that was like definitely one of my pros. But that was pretty much what I went down initially. So email and then Instagram DMs primarily.
Nice, nice. And presumably you started off with e-commerce brands from the get-go. Yeah. So
Yeah.
how was that? Did you find it difficult to convince those brands to work with you, or did you find that, answering the question for you, that the drop shipping stores kind of gave you a lot of leverage?
Yeah. I definitely think a lot of people will say don't start with e-commerce, and I definitely understand why, because it's super saturated and it's super hard to get people on. I feel like e-commerce brands, when they start a company, many of them are coming from retail, and I feel like they come in with an appreciation that if they're going to go online, they're already going to start doing digital marketing efforts. So a lot of that is like very technical driven, and honestly still some of the companies and brands that I speak with are very like, they have a department and they may be coming to me for the UGC side or something. Like, a lot of them come in knowing they need ads. But I did try and leverage the fact that I was already getting success on the drop shipping side, which I think helped a lot, because when you can actually show live dashboards and things like that, it like, I feel like it knocks down so much friction.
Yeah.
That I'm genuinely talking in front of live dashboards and just, muting out the parts that are like the private personal parts. And I think that was like a big helper for me.
For sure, for sure. And presumably you really leaned in, one judging from your website, you really leaned into the whole your data background and being data driven. What would you say to someone who's watching this and thinking, okay, well, this is all well and good. Scott's got a master's degree, right? He knows his shit, and he's got an unfair advantage here. But data is really important for any agency. Actually, it's something that everybody actually needs to learn and understand. And really, it's not something or even term that people talk about enough when it comes to advertising. Like, the data is the most important thing. It's how we know how to scale. It's how we know how to grow accounts. It's how we understand finances. Or how would somebody who hasn't got your background apply what you know about data to their service and result, hopefully, in delivering a better service for their clients?
Yeah, I think there's a couple ways to go around it. I mean, one is just finding some of the better third-party tracking tools, like just integrating that right off the bat. I mean, things like Triple Whale and Hyros are very available now, and I think they're super powerful. If you don't know where else to start, then having your client at least integrate those so you can be more informed on actual attribution. I think it also helps just with client results, because we sometimes have campaigns that underreport in general, like on Facebook and TikTok, and we find out that they're doing very well by using things that properly attribute, like Triple Whale. Beyond that, there's of course other things like you can set up custom API integration. You can look at things called CDPs, which will aggregate data and plug them back in. You can try and leverage first party data if you know how to do that. Like there's a number of other options, but I do think for someone that doesn't have an appreciation for a lot of the programming side, like at the very least, starting with things like third party pixel tracking and things like that. Again, like Triple Whale and Hyros is super powerful right now in this current market.
I agree, man. Is there any? Do you use just Triple Whale all the time, or do you use Hyros as well for clients? And if so, why does that differentiate between clients?
Yeah. So Hyros, in my opinion, is just really expensive. So when we have smaller clients, it's something that's very hard to step into. I think Triple Whale is just something that's growing more. Like we have a couple clients that aren't directly in ecom. So Triple Whale's like data that they've aggregated is very much so concentrated in ecom, and it won't be effective as soon as you step out of that market. There's other ones that try and just aggregate for certain tools, like maybe you've used Cometly as well, where they try and just kind of track like on Facebook. So it depends on what the client needs and typically what the price point of what they can afford is as well.
Yeah. No, I completely agree that. I mean, Triple Whale really is just a Shopify stores at the moment. I know they're working on a lot in the back end. We've got a great relationship with them, and we use it for absolutely all of our clients. And if you guys want to try out Triple Whale, a shameless plug, there'll be a link in the description. You can get like 30% off if you sign up to it. But it is essential if you're working with ecom brands. It really is absolutely essential because you need to have accurate tracking, and Facebook tracking really isn't great at the moment. And especially if you're offering a multi-platform strategy and you're running ads on multiple platforms, you want to have like a group ROAS that you can look at, which is pulled from all of the platforms that you're running ads on to understand the kind of the overall success of your campaign. So really important. Where do you see, and how do you see this? I'm interested to get your opinion on this. Obviously, being someone who's kind of lives their life by numbers somewhat, how do you see the future of e-commerce over the next couple of years? With kind of what, I don't know if you follow finances and kind of what's going on in the world right now, but like how do you feel about the future of growing an e-commerce agency right now?
In terms of an e-commerce agency, I can't say I have like a definitive response. I think there's just so many changes that keep happening that it's hard to predict like any one time what's going to happen in 5 years. Something that I definitely wonder is kind of like the tide of the importance of certain positions. Like I see so much more content exploding. Like so many people find success just having their content managed organically. Some people still want the ads very reliantly. You've had certain brands that talk more about like programmatic advertising, which is something where you kind of remove like the media buyer entirely and you just sort of feed it tons of data and let it figure it out. I don't know that, like, I think the biggest bottleneck for e-commerce is undoubtedly the fact that like, as we keep losing more data, it gets very hard to optimize on like the margins that typical e-commerce brands function on. So I guess if I were to say like one ludicrous thing, I'm curious if there will be any like integration of Web3, because I always see things like decentralized advertising being an incredibly powerful way for people like e-commerce brands to grow by reaching like their exact audiences who have made purchases on things like the blockchain. So it's something I'd love to see, but that's kind of my thoughts.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. You'll definitely be the first to jump on something like that.
I know,
clean out,
absolutely.
monopolize that subsector of the market. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So what's the structure of the company looking like now? So you're at what point per month at the moment, roughly?
I'm at like 10 to 20K bouncing around because some of it's performance based. And hopefully by the end of the year, we'll be past 20K, it looks like. But we'll see. Don't want to say it yet.
Nice. So is it just yourself, or do you have a team at the moment?
So I have someone who's basically like a COO, CMO. He's kind of like taking on more roles than he probably wants to. And then we have a couple media buyers on the team. And then I have a few VAs on the other side now that I've dialed in my outreach systems enough that like I can delegate those tasks to. So I'm not doing like any of the outreach myself each day. And that's the entire team right now. I hope to like be able to build the acquisition side more because I still do most of the sales calls myself, but that's the team. So the actual fulfillment is pretty much removed from me.
Dialed in. Nice. How did you find that process of actually hiring people and keeping them motivated?
I know there's definitely a lot of information you offered in the class as well of just being able to actually like see what goes into it. And also you guys teach a lot on the ad side, even in the program, like even more value, which helps me have exactly what I need, like the leverage I need to speak to these people. Beyond that, I think it was just going to tons of platforms, like even the big Facebook groups, going to like Upwork and things like that, and then interviewing like, I honestly think I interviewed over like 300 people total now, just for like the media buyer side, because I wanted to be really confident that they would like grow with me with the company.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough to find some super talented people. Like I've had the opportunity to get some incredible people on the media buying side.
Nice.
But yeah, definitely going through that process.
Nice. Love that. So what's the plan now? How are you, where do you want to take the business? What are the goals? What's the 12-month plan?
Yeah, the 12-month plan is definitely keep going with e-commerce. Like I've had the opportunity now, like I'm a big advocate of pushing value. So I put a lot of content out. I need to do more on YouTube like you do, you kill it. But like everywhere else I put posts pretty regularly. So I've had the opportunity of getting invited to like a couple of things like PR side. And I'm enjoying that side of growing with e-commerce. But being my background, I'm also currently expanding into SaaS and like tech just because I have such an appreciation for like, what are we selling? I feel like I can speak the same language as a lot of them. So I would like to kind of expand lightly into niches. I don't want to stretch myself too thin, but it's something that we definitely have a good idea of.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. But as far as like, so obviously that's like the industry you want to move into, but like how far do you want to actually take the business? Like where, like at what point is enough for Scott?
Right. I don't know. I feel like I've always been like a push it to its limits a little bit. So I would like to see how far I can. Like I said, this is the first year that I've truly just dedicated my like life to it, where I wasn't doing a master's on top of it. So I'm sort of happy with where I am, but I would love to see if I could push it past, 100K per month, while of course like not stressing the infrastructure of the agency and still getting clients amazing results, and maybe even beyond that. But I think I, from my background, have like a lot of appreciation to learn in terms of actually building a business and like what goes into the sales and everything. So we'll see.
Okay, awesome. And I don't ask people this enough, but I really should, because I think it says a lot. And I'd love to know what your why is. Like why push the business to its limit? Why grow it at all? Like what is the motivator behind growing this?
I guess, yeah, that's always a good question. Like I had mentioned to you before off camera, is like I've been one of those people who I wasn't like, school failed me or anything like that. Like pretty much every environment I put myself in, I've always strived to just excel and like see how far I could go. Like in college, I always wanted to be at the top of the class. When I did sports, I always wanted to be the best on the team. Like it was just one of those things. I feel like from the get-go, I just kind of came out with that motivation of like, how can I rise above my, who's around me? And now that I've just decided that this is the path for me, it's kind of the same thing where I'm in this setting and I want to see how far I can take it and what I can really do here. Like I said, I think in general, if anything, I'll expand into the Web3 side of it too, because I'm really excited by the projects of it. But no matter what I do, it's just always, what can I do with it? How can I make this as successful as possible?
It's the love of the game, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Love it. Awesome. Okay, awesome. Well, first of all, like, just before we round up, I mean, I would love to understand from your side, having started an agency whilst in university, and there are a lot of people that are kind of in your position that make excuses in your position. They're like, who were in your position, that they're like, okay, fine, I've got full-time commitments. Many people who start like, well, they got a full-time job, or they're in college, and for whatever reason, they use that as the reason as to why they can't actually build a successful business. What would you say to somebody in that position who does have full-time commitments, who is trying to juggle something else at the same time as running an agency right now? Is there anything they could do to make it easier?
I'm not sure I would say if there's anything to do to make it dramatically easier, like physically in terms of your actual commitments, but I definitely think mentally, like it was defining a why. It was like understanding, oh, I want like to be able to retire my parents. I want to live the lifestyle that I see other people live in pictures. Like I want to see how far I can take these ideas. I'm like, I actually worked a part-time job and did my master's and did the agency for a brief time because I knew like this was something I wanted. So I was just going to make time for it, whether it meant staying up later or waking up earlier or working a little harder. Like, I think it's just something that you truly have to define your why and then commit to it. Like I said, I mean, I didn't have an excuse. I didn't go out and party. I didn't do anything like that. I wake up at like 6 or 7 every morning, go to the gym, do my tasks, and then work in the agency. Like that was just kind of it.
Yeah, it's like an obsession, and it was exactly the same for me starting when I had the job. Like for me, there was no excuse. There was no way out. It's like, okay, I'm working hard right now. I'm tired in the evening. I'm tired in the morning. I'm trying to fit in the gym as well. But what else is the option? Like, what other option do I have? Am I going to quit my job and give up my income and then take a big risk? No. Like, I have to do this and have to figure it out for a short period of time until I can get out of that. Well, actually, another hugely successful agency that's kind of come through the academy, that they started their agency when they were in universities. Joe and Ollie Marston from or Joe Marston and Ollie Hudson, sorry, from Saw With Us. And those guys are doing like 200k a month in their main agency now, about 150k in their secondary agency that they've got for a second UGC offer. Smashed it. Those guys built that agency whilst they were in university, and kind of similar to you, when they finished, they just went full send on it, just went all in. And the people, and ultimately people that don't make excuses are the ones that are going to succeed, right? It's the people that don't allow themselves to become victim to their schedule, or don't even allow themselves to use it. Because I don't think it's a good enough excuse, unless you're running a household and you have kids as well. That's when it gets really hard, but I can't speak for that, you know?
Me neither. Yeah. I don't have that weight on me. It was definitely just like, I could always focus on me. So I can say that, but I think it's just like, the quicker you work harder, the faster you'll get out of that situation. So like, I just knew if I just work harder now, it's going to just happen that much faster later. So I would always try and get things done as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Love it, man. Awesome. So if people want to follow your journey, they want to see kind of like what's going on, how are we doing? Has he dominated Web 3.0? Yeah. What's good? Where can people follow Scott? I'll put some links in the description. If you send them to me afterwards, I'll track them down.
Okay, yeah. I have a LinkedIn that I post on a lot, although I will admit I post more about Web3 than I do digital marketing. But and then I have a YouTube that I've recently started where I post a lot of that kind of stuff, because I think there's a lot of appreciation that can be had for the advertising side, just on like e-commerce. Like I said, I really work with them heavily. So that's where I talk about a lot of digital marketing stuff. So I think those are probably the two biggest ones. I do have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever else. So.
Yeah, awesome. I'll chuck a link in the description. Scott, thanks so much, man. It was great speaking to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here. I appreciate it.
Sorted. That was good. Enjoyed it.
Thank you. Yeah, that was sick.